Hello everyone, this is Haraset here, and welcome back. This is going to be a bonus episode to the Path to the Pro Side series. This will be a Q&A episode. Generally what I will do is answer some of the questions that have popped up over the course of the video. Now before I kick off, I just want to thank all of you guys out there that have been watching these videos, liking them and subscribing. It has been amazing. I think I'm up to about 200 now subscribers, which is huge for me. Really good. Thank you guys. It really helps me and pushes me harder to do these videos for you. But we should kick off. This is a Q&A. I'm going to start off with some of the questions that popped up quite a bit on the videos that people are a little bit confused of. The first one comes in from the coffee guy here, and I'll just read out exactly what he sent me here. Standard setups seem to have movement keys that are bound to W, A, S and D. Then per your video you bind stuff around that. I've also heard that people slide one over and use the E, S, D, F keys for movement. Granted easier access to Q, W, R and T. Both give about the same comfortable access to shift and control. Curious as to what you think, if the movement keys should be E, S, D and F, or whether or not it's a big improvement. Okay, the first thing I want to do is just quickly jump onto that yourself. The reason now, I would have gone down this one and I tried this in the past. Now using E, S, D and F on your keys is actually a lot more difficult than you might consist. You say yourself that it could be easier around control. I actually disagree. I think if I'm using F, for example, which would be my right directional turning or strafing, try press control 1. This is where you'll immediately hit the problem. Now the reason I'm focusing on the build that I put out there to use the WAS and D is because of the comfort, and we're trying to keep it down to comfort. So I don't generally agree. Some people do like it because it gives access to some of the additional keys, for example shift Q and control Q and stuff like that, and it's a bit easier to work around, and you can use W. You have an extra key there on the side, but in general your actual top buttons are a little bit harder to reach, and I find that a bit more difficult, and that's why I generally try to avoid this setup. So if I'm pressing control 1 while trying to strafe to the right, because in most cases I will always be strafing to the right using D, and then I'll press control 1 and my fingers just about reach that. And unless you have really heavy or very long fingers, you might have an easier time with this, but for me my hand is too stretched across the keyboard to work with that. So that is why I'm not using ESDF. Second question in there was that not using the forward key for movement, but instead using both mouse buttons. Now this is a question that's popped up quite a lot in the comments. I've seen this as well. Yes, there are specific times to when you're using both keys. Now a lot of people are wondering how I movement with the mouse. If you hold down left and right click on your mouse, it will actually allow your character to move forward. Now a lot of people use this, especially in the higher level play, you will see it, where they are just relying primarily on moving on this. The only problem I have with using it only, or alone, without using, and just say I wanted to bind W to some other ability, is that is for comfort once again and optimization. A lot of people do use it, and I use it myself, but I use it in circumstances for when I need access to keys that are a little bit strained on my hand. For example, I can't be pressing W and control 2 at the same time. My hand itself just sits around. I have my baby finger over the control button, and my middle key, middle finger, which would normally sit on W, would then take precedence on the number 2 key. If you try this yourself, you will see what I mean. So when I'm doing a situation like that, I will immediately press down the 2 clicks on my mouse and revolve around moving on that direction. It's probably the easiest way to do it, and it's comfortable. It's a transition, yes, but something to get used to. The last question to come in there from the coffee guy was, I am guessing that it will take time for your hands to get comfortable to build the agility to hit all the keys. So I guess I'm asking, does practice make it easier? In all terms, yes. This is a time problem, and it's something that a lot of people can get very easily frustrated with. Pretty much the reason the way I was trying to do the videos, and I hope people are trying to follow it, is if you do it by increments, little bits at a time. The best way to do it is try to follow through with the levels. Like I was trying to plan it out, so for the first 10 levels it'll probably take you 4 to 5 hours of just pressing 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are just basic things that you get a feel for with the tilde key, of course. And then, you know, when you hit the next 10 levels, you know, it'll probably take a longer time for you to reach 10 to 20. It usually takes maybe about give or take a day or two of time. played, maybe about 40 to 50 hours. And you know, by that time you're getting used to pressing QE or F and some other abilities in there, and you're mixing in shift and stuff like that. And then from 20 to 30 maybe another day or two, and then 30 to 40 another day or two. I mean, in total it took me approximately, given the game time and not rushing it, just enjoying all the quests and everything, I think it took me about 8 days total play time. I don't know how many hours that works out at the top of my head. It's over 180 anyway. So if you take that into account when you're using the keys, and you spend that much time, even at that amount of time you won't be entirely comfortable. It can take weeks. I really mean that, weeks of playing. So give yourself time, pace yourself, and just let it come naturally and easy. And it will get frustrating, but the more you keep at it, the better the more easier it'll be for you. Okay, moving on. The next question there was by how do I pronounce his name? Evelyn Sandra. Evelyn Sandra. And she asks, I'm presuming is a she, how do you auto walk with your mouse? I know that you can move freely when holding the right mouse button down. I'd also like to be able to use auto run with my mouse. I only have 3 buttons, but I can only select my scroll for auto run, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, this really comes down to your mouse. If you want to be using built keys for your mouse, I really would recommend just putting the extra couple of bucks in there for a 5-button mouse. I think you can probably easily bind one of the side keys for that one. Now, I did recently myself purchase a Razer Naga, to get my hands on it, just to give it a feel. See, there was quite a lot of questions and comments on it. Get yourself a Razer Naga, and you know, I wanted to try it out myself. I'm still using all of the binds that I have down, and what I'm doing is incorporating the extra abilities that, you know, for Star Wars, the game itself, I think in total it has about 50, and I cover it up to about 36, give or take. I wasn't expecting to use over that, and it's pretty ridiculous that it does. It's very high requirement, especially for my class. But I'm using, you know, some of the side keys for abilities like I have grenades on my character and trinkets and things like that. So I'm mixing it in, incorporating it in. The best thing I could say about using auto run on the mouse is going to be difficult. You can, as I said, explained earlier, you can use the holding down the 2 click buttons, left and right click, to move forward, but you kind of want it easier to use auto run. Ideally, probably just as easy to bind the key to something on your keyboard that you're comfortable with using. I'd really suggest that. Probably put it to maybe H or something that you wouldn't use quite incorporated with your combat time, but when you're running from point A to point B, you just want to be able to press the button and go for it. I think the default is the numlock key in general on the keyboard, but it's going to be a pain to switch forward. If you're only on a 3-button mouse, that is actually going to limit you quite a bit, so I can't really comment any further on that one. The next question there comes in from Haxor Jr. He says, quick question. I play a Sith Assassin and my main damage comes from being behind the enemy. What's the best way while using abilities to move behind the enemy? Okay, this one comes down to strafing. Pretty much it takes a bit of practice and some time to get used to it. If you hold down right click on your mouse and you press A and D, you will strafe left and right. What you have to do in a lot of cases is get into the practice of using this quite a lot. So the best way to do it is either get a friend or pick just your random NPC that you're trying to kill and keep running around behind it while you're attacking. It's a difficult process. It'll take some time to get used to it, but the more you get used to it, the more you can see yourself running around circles around people, and this way you can always get in for the backstab. Now granted, you won't do it on mobs, so to speak, because they're actually built in game to make sure they always follow the front of your position, but players won't be able, quite a lot of players out there won't be able to turn as fast, or you know, latency and stuff like that kicks in, you can get behind them. Mixing of that, best off, start off with stealth. I know you have this ability, and when you open up a backstab, it does quite a bit of damage mixed in with stuns. You can always do that when you stun your target, run around behind them, and so forth. There's quite a bit of a mix in there, but just in general comes down to practicing with strafing. I would say focus on that. Okay, the next comment in there comes from a username Akcax. What a great name. And pretty much it is just a comment more so than a question, but I wanted to focus on. He says he rolled a marauder after watching the videos because he would have had a too hard time to change all the keybinds on his 50 power tech. Now, I want to support this in general. This is a great practice to use for all of you out there, especially those that are up already in the levels and only discovering the videos. The best way to probably get into it is to actually roll an alt. This is a good way to get used to key bindings, and what can happen is by the time your alt is leveled up quite a bit, you can then actually apply those keybinds to your main or your level 50 character. It's a good practice and something I really recommend doing, guys. It really helped me out in the past and allowed me to get up quite a bit more usage of my keys as I was leveling, because you practice and you're doing repetitive actions all the time. Okay, next one there comes in from a user called YUHayton224, and he says, I'm having a little bit of trouble. When I try to use the tilde key, I'm always hitting the 1 key. Is there a way to fix that? I did reply to this in the comments section, but I put it up in the video for the people who are probably having the same difficulty with this issue. In general, the best way to get around that is to actually put your most used ability in that key. This is the best way to learn a key, or to learn the actual comfort or the area of a key. I know this myself because when I did start Star Wars, I was doing the same thing myself. I found myself pressing 1 all the time when I needed to be pressing tilde. So what I did is I bound my primary attack early on from the get-go into the tilde key, and from there I found myself slowly transitioning. It took a bit of time, it takes a bit of practice. I got frustrated, I kept hitting the wrong key more than once. In my case, I was using it as the warrior. I was using charge for it, so I'd always open up with that key, and that way if I pressed 1, nothing would happen. So I'd kick myself. I'd be like, God damn it. The other way to do that is actually just remove something from the 1 key. Just take the abilities off and only use the tilde key. Things like this, it's the same with a lot of abilities. That's why I try to keep it, or try to recommend keeping the common use abilities to keys that you won't generally be used to. For example, like I said in, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd video, shift 1 being the AoE ability. This is a great way to get used to actually hitting shift 1. If you're going to have always down in your mindset to this equals AoE, or this equals charge, this equals attack or primary attack, this equals, heal. Simple little things like that will really just help you out little bit by time, but after all, it just takes a lot of practice, guys. You just have to keep at it. This in turn brings me on to the last question. This came in from Thomas Nielsen. It was a comment on the Path to the Pro Side video part 1, and it was something I also replied to, but I'm putting it up there because I have a feeling this is one of those issues that a few people are running into as well. How do you bind the tilde key? It is not supported in game. Can you only get a ticket screen? And I really hate that because I want to use the tilde key. Now, this is actually related to keyboard language. I think this is a problem that I have encountered in a few games in the past. So what you have to actually do to make this work is make sure that your keyboard is set to ENUS language. You can do that through Windows. Generally you will have a language bar at the bottom of your Windows screen. If you actually go ahead and have a look at the keyboard controls down there, I'll see if I can put something up here in the video. You have the ability to actually change it to, of course, in the language settings, in the general section there you have the ability to change it to English United States. This is just a general problem with the coding, and I have a feeling this probably will be fixed in the future because there's a lot of keyboards out there that use different ones. I know I am living in Slovenia at the moment, and I've come across a few Slovenian keyboards and things like that I've had to work around to have keys in different positions. And therefore, if I actually set my default Windows keyboard settings, so that it recognizes it without a problem. But that's it for this episode, guys. Of course, if there are any more questions, please send me a mail or leave a question in the description below. I will try my best to get around to answering as much as I can in hopes that this will help you out. The email address to send me to is offtimegamer@gmail.com. That is offtimegamer@gmail.com, and I will be able to get back to you and hopefully have some topics for future shows. Of course, guys, I can also look at some other games that I have access to. If there is any questions at all on these things, let me know. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.
Download complete. Imperial forces have secured the data core. Powering down.